Yo, what's going on everybody? Welcome to this video. We'll be explaining about inheritance in Python. So let's dive right in. The term inherit in the English dictionary means to receive, derive, or be left with. And we can apply that concept to programming. As we said earlier, the whole idea of OOP is to relate real world to programming. And in this video, we will see how classes inherit attributes and methods from other classes. These classes can form a parent-child relationship where a child will receive everything that a parent class has, much like in real world where you can inherit genes from your parent. I believe that was a great introduction, so let's write some code. For starters, I'll just create a simple class called animal. So if you don't know about this syntax, you can just watch the previous video where I discussed in detail about creating classes, about the attributes, methods, and creating objects. So I'll assume that we all know about that, and I'll just go right into inheritance. So I have this simple class. It will have an attribute called alive because I presume an animal to exist, it must be alive, and I'll put the value of alive to be true. Then I can create some simple methods. Let's say sleep, or let's say eat. An animal should eat. And this is a method, and we say that all method you must put this self there, and I'll just print, make it just simple. I'll just print this animal is eating. Then I'll just duplicate this to create another method there. Let me just call it sleep because I assume animals must sleep. So I'll just say sleep, then say this animal is sleeping. Okay, so if you don't understand this, or if you don't understand what I've done here, you can just watch the previous video. And in the previous video, we said that you can use this init to define a constructor in quotes, where when you create an object of this class, this will be called. But if you don't provide the init, an animal will be created without passing this. I believe if you watch the previous video, you understand what I'm saying. So this alive is an attribute, and these ones here are methods. Okay, so with inheritance, I can create another class which will inherit all these properties. So maybe I can have another class, let's say dog. So I'll just say class dog. Then for syntax of the inheritance, you put parentheses, then you put inside there, you put the name of the parent class, like that. So if I just do something like this, Python will know that this class dog will inherit from the animal. So now let me just put pass. I believe you know about the pass keyword. You said that the pass keyword is used, it's just a placeholder for future code. So I'll create a class called dog. I'll also create another class there called, let's say, cat. So yeah, so I have two classes here, dog and cat, which inherit from the animal class. And I can prove that. So if I create an object for dog, let me say dog. We looked at this. So if you want to create an object, you just call the class like that. And since this dog does not have the init, shall not pass anything there. And I'll just do the same thing for cat. Okay, so now I have the dog class, I have the dog object and the cat object. So to prove that this dog object and the cat object have inherited these attributes and method from the parent class, I can just show you that. If I say something like dog dot alive, you can see this dog object has access to this alive attribute, and you can see inside the dog class I didn't define any alive attribute. That is because this dog will have inherited this alive property from its parent. So if I print this, it will just tell me true, because I've set the value of alive to be true. So if I run that code, you'll see dog has access to that attribute alive, and you can see in the terminal it will say true. That means that this dog has access to all these methods and attributes. I can just prove the same with the cat. If I just say something like cat dot eat and run this code, you'll say to tell me that the animal is eating. This animal is eating. As it tells me this animal is eating. That means that both the cat objects and the dog objects have access to the attributes and method in the animal class. So this is just their parent, and these subclasses are called the children. So the dog and the cat are children of the animal class. In that means that the dog and the cat are siblings. Okay, so why should we do something like this? You can see now this has saved us many lines of code, because to achieve the same thing without inheritance, I'll have to do something like this. I'll have to copy, I have to write this same code in dog. If inheritance was not there, I'll have to write the same code in dog, the same code in cat. So you'll see now this could be a lot lines of code, and I'll also have to remove this. If I wanted the same thing to function, I'll have to do something like that. So you can see all these lines of code have all been saved because of inheritance. But this could be a bad experience, because if I wanted to change the value of a life to false, I'll have to change it here, change it here, change it here. You can see that's too much. And since you're using 2 classes, it might look simple, but just assume you have something like 100 classes. This will be pain in the back. Okay, so that is it with the inheritance. So you have seen that the cat can inherit from the animal class, and also the dog has access to the animal class, and that is what we call inheritance. You can have as many subclasses as you want. For example, let me just add some more subclasses. I'll just add two of them. Let me just add here fish. Fish is also an animal, so I'll just put here fish. And also let me add here maybe hawk. We said that a class must start with a capital letter. For those who didn't watch that video, a class should start with a capital letter. So now I have 4 children classes, or 4 subclasses, all of them which inherit from the animal class. And the advantage of this inheritance is that you can have individual attributes and method for a specific child. Like for the dog, in addition to these 2 methods, it can have its own method. I can just add a method for the dog, so I can just copy that and paste it here. Let's say a dog can bark, so I can just say here bark. Then I can say dog is barking, but I can say woof woof, like that, to mean that the dog is barking. And I can have another class here for the cat. Let's say walk, and maybe say the cat is walking. I'm trying to show you that in addition to the inherited class, the subclasses can have their own attributes and methods. Like this fish can have a attribute of swim, because you know that fish can swim. I can say fish is swimming. And the hawk can also have maybe for flying, and can say hawk is flying. Can say fly, and say hawk is flying. Like that. So now I have the child classes have their own methods. So in addition to this method, this dog class has an additional method called bark. So it will have these 2 methods plus this its own method. The same with cat, the same with fish and hawk. And that's the benefit of having the child classes. They can have for you to make use of this inheritance, you can just get a parent class which has the methods and attributes that are common to all subclasses. Then for each subclass, you can define its specific attributes and method. Like maybe you can just define a specific attribute for fish. Maybe a fish has a fin. You can say fin. Then let's say maybe a fish has, let's say, I think it's 4 fins. I'm not sure. So you can say have a different attributes for fish and its own method. So for every child class, I can have its own attributes and method, and that's the importance of having this inheritance. So if down here I just get a class, I get an object for the fish, I can just say fish is equals to fish, like that. This will be a fish object. So you can see this fish now has access to the alive, because the alive is in the parent. It also has access to fish.eat, because it is in the parent. It has access to sleep, because sleep is also in the parent. Then in addition to that, it has its own methods, that is the swim. So a fish can also swim. So you can say something like fish.swim, and that will work just fine. And if I print all this, let me just print this is alive. you can see it will tell me true, and all those methods will just run fine because the fish object has access to all those methods. You can see true, this animal is eating, this animal is sleeping, this fish is swimming. And also I can just print the fin, because we had an additional attribute for fin that only the fish has access to. So if I say dot fin, it will tell me 4, because I put their fish has 4 fins. Because it will tell me 4. So that is the importance of inheritance. But these subclasses cannot, if let's say a cat has no access to this swim method, because swim method is not in the parent. I think that is clear. So if I create a cat, let me say I create a cat object like that, capital C. Then I say cat dot swim. You can see it's not even in the option, but if I say it forces like that dot swim, you can see it will tell me that cat does not have access to the swim. Let me just print, it's just printing automatically, so let me just run this code. I think I didn't save it, so let me save it first. And if I run that code, I'm trying to access swim, which is not in there. You can see it will tell me that cat object has no attribute called swim, because you have seen that swim is only present in the fish. So these subclasses cannot have access to methods or attributes of their siblings, but they can only have access to the attributes and methods of the parent class. This parent class is also known as the base class. Now that you know about the basics, why don't we take it another step further? So allow me to clean this first, and also clean this, so that you can have some small code that you can look at it and understand it simply. So let me just return this. It will say it was like that. Okay, so you know that this dog class has access to all methods and attributes of its parent class, and that is inheritance. We've already discussed about that. So what if I wanted to change the methods of the method of this parent class in the dog class? That is just allowed. Let's say I want to change this eat method here. So we know that an animal is eating, but we have seen that. Let me just show you what we did. If I create a dog object, and I just get it like that, then I call it with, I say dog.eat, I access the eat method. It will tell me that this animal is eating, because it will inherit from the animal class. But what if you want to make this specific to the dog, not the animal? We can do exactly that by just redefining this function in the dog class. So I'll just create the same function in the dog class, then I'll just define it how I want. So in the parent class it was saying this animal is eating. Maybe in the dog class I can say this dog is eating. So I've made this function specific to the dog, because I've seen that this parent class can have many subclasses. So to make each method specific to a function, you can just redefine it. And now if I run this code, you can see if I run the code, then you have seen here I'm just calling the dog object with this eat function. The dog is eating. So what we have done here is called method overriding. And method overriding is when a child class redefines the methods of the parent class. You can see this eat method, it's here in the parent class, but in the parent class it's saying that this animal is eating. In the child class I have the same eat method, but now it will tell me that this dog is eating. So if I call this dog.eat, it will first look for this eat function in its class. If it does not find it, it's going to look for it in the parent class. So if I call this dog.eat, it will look it in the eat class, in the dog class, and it will find it. Initially when I didn't have this, when I had this code like this, it was looking for this eat function in its class, and it did not find it. So it went to look for it in the parent class, and it found it. That it was saying that this animal is eating. But since we redefined that eat method, and if I call this dog with the eat method, it will access it in its own class and it will find it. So it will not go an extra mile for looking at it in the parent class, because it already found it in this its own class, that is the dog class, and that is called method overriding. But maybe you want to use the same method and you want to extend some functionality. Maybe I want to say this animal is eating, then I say I am the dog, something like that. And in Python there's this function called the super function, which allows subclasses to call methods from its super class. So I've seen earlier that if I call this it, it will call it, it will look for it in its own class, and if it finds it, it will just execute it. But what if I want to extend the functionality of this it function? I don't want to redefine it altogether, I want to extend its functionality. One way that I can do that is I'll just repeat this code here there and paste it there. That is one way that I can do it, but that will be repeating myself, and this is just one line of code. It can be simple, but in most cases it's usually a lot of lines of code. So you cannot just copy and paste code everywhere, because there's a rule in programming called the dry, do not repeat yourself. So you can use this super function, and this super function allows subclasses to call methods from its super class. So I want to call this each method from the super class, or from the super class or the base class. I'll just say super function, then I say dot, then I say the function that I want to call. I'll call the each function, like that. So now if I say dog.each, it will look for this each function in its own class, and it will find it. And once it finds it and starts executing this method, it will go to line 12, and in line 12 this function is saying that go to the parent class and call that each function first. So it will go to the parent class, search for this each function, and execute this line of code. So this will just print this animal is eating. Then after it has finished executing this line 4, it will now continue to execute its own function, that is line 13. So if I run this code, I'll see in the terminal it will say that this animal is eating, then it will also say that this dog is eating. Or maybe I can make this make sense. I can say the animal is a dog. This is just a simple example, but this is very useful. I didn't save my code. I don't know why I forgot. So let me just save my code first before running it. And if I run it, you can see it will tell me that this animal is eating, then the animal is a dog. That is because if I call this dog with the eat function, it will call this eat method within the dog class. Then within that method, we are calling the eat method of the parent class. Then you are still defining that function again. So yeah, I believe that is it with this inheritance. The other thing with inheritance is that you can have multiple inheritance, where a child class can also have its own subclass, but it's just the same thing. You have seen that this animal is a base class or a parent class, and this dog inherits from the animal class. So this dog is a child of this animal. Also, this dog can have its own child classes, where this dog, if you want to have a child class, you just do the same thing. I can just create another class here. I don't know what I can call it. Maybe I can call dog child. Then it will inherit from the dog class. Then maybe let me just type here pass. So this is what is called multiple inheritance, where this dog child class inherits from the dog class, and the dog class inherits from the parent class. So this is like a family tree, where this is the child, this is the parent of this child, and this is the parent of this. So literally this is just the grandfather of this, or the grandparent of this dog child. And that's how it is in the real world. So I believe that was a good introduction to inheritance, and I believe you enjoyed the video. So see you in the next video. Peace out.